All right. Hello and welcome to this edition of Foreign Press Correspondents Talk. My name is Atticus Kangas and I'm a news associate with the Association of Foreign Press Correspondents USA. And joining me today is journalist Rita Guerra. Anna is the West Coast correspondent for the Portuguese news agency Lusa. And she's currently based in Los Angeles and focuses much of her work on technology and the entertainment industry. So thank you very much for joining me today, Anna.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So to start, I'd love to hear a little bit about your entry into the world of journalism. How did you first get involved in reporting, and what made you realize that this is what you wanted to do?
Well, when I was 8 years old, I asked my mom for a typewriter, one of those antique ones that kind of dates me. And she gave it to me, and I started writing at the time some poetry and, some simple stuff. And by the time I was, I think, in third grade, one of our assignments in school was to report on an issue that was going on around the school. So we had a wall newspaper, and me and a colleague did something about trees being cut down, and we were very sad about it, and we thought we needed the community to know. And so that was my first, I guess, contact with reporting something I felt was important. And since that time, I just decided this is what I wanted to be. I never wanted to be anything else. So I did all of my studies with this one thing in mind. I wanted to be a journalist, and that's been my lifelong dream.
Thank you so much. I guess this leads me to wonder, what was your biggest shock upon moving to the United States? As sort of a part A, and then part B, how does the news media work differently in the US than it does in Portugal?
Well, living in a Western country as Portugal and being very familiar with life in the US via shows and movies and books and pop culture, you think you know America, right? And then when you come and you actually live here, there is a bit of a cultural shock. Aside from the work ethic that is different, there is a little bit of a shock here. The way that things are done, even the times of the meals, time when people get meetings set up, the things that are valued. We are a lot more family oriented and friends oriented and leisure oriented in Portugal. And here it's a lot about work, 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 work all day long. It's a different rhythm. So that was a bit of a shock. The other shock was that it's very the way that your career progresses is very individualistic here. Everyone is trying to advance their own interests, and there's less. I felt it was less of well, let me help you out. Let me mentor you. It didn't feel like I felt like I arrived and I was thrown to the wolves, even though I had lots of experience before. So that was different. And that was a shock. And the way that the media works here is a lot more fragmented. So because the country is so huge, media that is very important in New York is not going to be as important in Los Angeles. Local media is going to pay attention to things that national media is not going to pay attention. And you have to reach out to different PR agencies and contacts, and they have this divided differently. And so you have to knock on 5 or 6 doors to get the one thing that back in Europe, you just had to, know that one person. So very fragmented and very inward looking. So whatever happens in the States is the priority. If you're writing for a country outside, especially if it's a small country like mine, like Portugal, then that goes in the back corner. Oh, you're foreign press. Okay. Well, it's much more difficult. So I found myself having to literally knock on doors and show up places unannounced and do things that were a little bit cringy and uncomfortable, like, hey, it's me again. I emailed you, I didn't get a response. So I did things here to get those contacts that I didn't have to do in Portugal. That was very, very hard. It was like starting over.
Okay, yeah. And so you touched on how the cultural differences between Portugal and the United States, and you mentioned, you know, leisure in Portugal and how it's more family oriented. When you first moved to the United States, did you find that you had to deal with homesickness? And if so, how would you advise foreign correspondents who have left their home to deal with, you know, feelings of homesickness, like missing their culture?
Yes. Well, I thought when I came that it would happen a few months down the line. So first, there's a novelty. You're very excited about what you're going to do. Everything else is, you know, back burner. And then when you get here and you settle into your new reality, then you start missing the coffee or, you know, the family Sunday dinners. But with me, I regret it immediately. I arrived within the next week. I thought, oh no, what did I do? Like, I'm not sure if I can do this. Like, I don't have anyone here. My family is across the world. I don't have a network of friends. I don't have a network of former university colleagues. I don't have, because that's what you have in your home country. You have not only your family and your friends, but the people you've worked with. You're not thrown into an environment where you're a complete alien. And so for me, it was very immediate. And I spent the first few weeks really thinking that I had made a mistake and that I couldn't do it. But then I thought, well, if it really was a mistake and if things are really bad, then I'll just pack my bags and go home. Like, what is the worst that can happen? I'm failing. Okay. And so that thought really comforted me. That's the one advice that I give is expect it. It's going to happen. And so, and it's fine. You can try it out for 2 nights and, you know, just be sad about it. And then go back to the place where you decided you wanted to come. Why did you want it to come? And it realize it takes time and it's not going to happen in 1 month or two. You're not going to be hugely successful in not even 6 months. It will take time. And for people who came in their 30s, like I did, with a career established in Portugal, coming here, starting from scratch, it was hard. As I was expecting things to be much quicker, and they were not. And so patience was something that I had to learn that I didn't have a lot of before.
Great, thank you very much. And that leads me to wonder, since coming to the United States, what is is there any story that sticks out to you as your favorite that you've reported on?
I've covered so many things. I would say that Donald Trump's election, the whole process, and especially the night of the election, for multiple reasons, were one of the most fascinating coverages that I underwent. I mean, I was talking to people on the street. Obviously, in Los Angeles, a lot of people were very sad, very angry. So they had a lot of strong things to tell us. Usually people are a little bit suspicious of journalists, you know, especially foreign journalists, like, you write for where? But they were very forthcoming, and they wanted the world to know this is not what represents America. This is not. So all of that process, not only that I worked on it afterwards, talking to Hillary Clinton supporters and Donald Trump supporters, and understanding how this happened and what that meant. That was a very unique time in America, and I felt very fortunate to be here and be able to understand this on the street better than I would have if I was on the other side of the world, you know, listening to analysts talking about it, because a lot of them got things wrong.
Yeah. And then, so can you describe how the social culture of the foreign press in the United States is like? Is it very helpful and friendly? Is it very competitive?
Well, it depends on the medium and the segment you're writing about. For instance, I also do a lot of entertainment because I'm in Los Angeles. So the Oscars and Hollywood and all of those things. And there is a little bit of competition, but it's usually country related. So a lot of the correspondents that are here are writing for their respective countries. So someone in Spain will very gladly share something with me because I'm writing for Portugal. Someone in France. So I do get a lot of help. Like there's exchange. Oh, did you see about the screening? Like I can take you as a +1. You can write. They introduce. So it's very helpful. I really really like my peers in this segment. In the technology sector, not so much, because people are more looking to break that big startup that is going to become a unicorn or something. So there's a little bit more protection, I would say. In terms of the Portuguese American community that I covered a lot too, I also feel it's very helpful. Everyone is always trying to introduce me to something new, some new business, some new person, and people get really happy. And there's local mediums that are doing the exact same thing that I am, and I don't feel it's very aggressively competitive. Like there's a sense that the more people are doing this, the more it grows, the more light it shines on something that otherwise would not be recorded at all.
Okay. Great, thank you. And what techniques do you use for deciding which stories are worth pursuing and which might not be worth putting in a lot of effort into?
It varies dramatically. If I want to interview a Portuguese American that is secluded in somewhere in Sacramento, and I'm trying to reach him and try 5 people and no one is able to get me a contact, I probably will not drive all the way to Sacramento and try to bust him somewhere. So it depends on the value. I mean, but if that person is connected to a Portuguese American congressman and they have a proposed bill that is going to impact the Portuguese American community, then yes, then I will drive there and show up and try to get him to talk to me. So it really depends on the value of the news. Is it nice to have, or is it really informative and it's really going to give the people who are going to read very useful information that is going to impact decisions that they might make, business decisions, something like that. So it's not as much how many people are going to read this, like are we going to get like 5 million views, or it's not like that, because a news agency doesn't go like that. So it's a lot more about what is really really important and useful that other agencies are not looking at this, because they don't serve the Portuguese American community or Brazilian community, because I take in every community that speaks Portuguese is of interest to me. So it depends on that. In terms of the entertainment, I mean, how many doors I have to knock to get Leonardo DiCaprio? Probably a lot, but I will knock on them, because those interviews are always very unique and fascinating. And once you get them, you take so much out of it. So it really depends on what you're trying to achieve, what the audience is interested in, and what you can make them interested in. Because sometimes I'm pursuing something that I think, well, a lot of people might not want to read about this. And then I find out that if you use the right angle and if it connects to them in some way, then they are interested and they surprise you. Look, so many outlets reposted or reprinted what we wrote. This is amazing.
Yeah, and you talk about having to travel long and far to talk to people and knocking on countless doors. So that leads me to my next question of how do you manage? I mean, this field is one that requires long hours, strict deadlines, and how do you manage the stresses of this profession?
Well, I always take time to go to the gym and do some kickboxing. Get my endorphins in early. But yeah, meditation is good. And one of the things that I also find good is to journal, maybe not every day, but journal like once a week or something about your goals, what you were able to do, what you were not able to do, because it's very easy for us to get to the end of the day and still feel like we didn't do enough, or think of the article we sent, and it's, oh, I should have written that better. Oh, I forgot to. And then you can't sleep because you're thinking, oh, I failed on this. And some things you just have to let it go and think, okay, I've done the best I could. This is, this is what it is. But because I don't have to be in a newsroom from 9 to 9, which was previously my life, I can manage my time better. And sometimes the fact that I also write for a different time zone means that I can write when they're sleeping. So I don't have to send the article in 5 minutes. I might have 3 or 4 hours to think about it. And sometimes I'm writing and I think this is not going the way I want it to go. Let me just go take a hike, or literally a hike, like around the park, or go to the gym, do something. And then I come back and I'm refreshed, and and now in half an hour I do it. So the stress for me is easier to manage here because I manage my own time, and the time zone difference helps for me. The traveling stress, actually, I'm kind of craving it right now because I've been, we've been doing Zoom for 2 years. And yes, I've been on the road during the pandemic, of course, especially during the Joe Biden, Donald Trump election. But it was very different. You have the masks on, you have to get tested, you talk to people at arm's length. It's not the same thing. So traveling is actually one of the things that I'm looking forward to resuming. And I think my big one, the next one, is going to be in January when I cover the CES Las Vegas, the Consumer Electronics Show. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I think we're all looking forward to getting back to traveling and being on the road, some sort of normalcy. But just to wrap up, I have one final question of what advice, one tip or two tips would you give to a young journalist aspiring to fill your shoes to become a foreign correspondent in the United States?
Well, the first thing is what is the one thing that you can do that no one else is doing? Because yes, you can come here and you can cover the Oscars. But you can also come here and find that there's a very interesting community of indie artists doing something that resonates in a specific part of the world you come from. And so what I mean is find what it is that you can do here that no one else is trying to do. Do you have a different perspective on this? Because if you want to be a copy paster of press releases and just try to mimic what the other agencies are doing, you're not going to add a lot. You probably will not feel as satisfied. And it's a big move. It's not without, its perils, and it's very emotionally draining. So coming here needs to be prepared, and you need to have a very specific sense of what you think you can achieve, what you think you can do. But at the same time, if you're young, I will also say this: you're too young to be afraid. So if that's your dream, you move, you do it, prepare it, but you move and you do it and you try it. And if the first approach doesn't work, then you can change it. Like, no one is telling you that you're stuck doing anything. Like, you're always one decision away from a completely different life, work, country. I mean, you're one airplane away from anywhere in the world. So do it. Think about what you can do differently. Find your niche, and it's probably going to take a while. For me, it took a couple of years until I thought, oh, okay, this is my sweet spot. This is what I can do that no one else is doing. And I found my place, and I'm growing and growing and growing and expanding my coverage. But it took a while. So be patient, but be on your feet. So be ready for the opportunity, and risk it, because you're too young to be afraid. When you're 85, you're gonna want to look back and think, well, I did it. This is how it went, but I did it.
Great. Well, thank you. That's definitely good to hear. And with that, we'll wrap up this interview. Thank you very much for talking with us, Anna. It was great to hear from you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.